Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ray Tampa podcast. Our podcast is new, our podcast is bold, and truth is our guiding principle. But political correctness is out the door. We will tell it like it is. My name is Ray Tampa, and I'm the host of the Ray Tampa podcast. We have in our studio my co-hosts, two very talented, very intelligent gentlemen, Mr. Russell Cato and Mr. Jamie Wilson III. Today, we're going to tackle the subject of the mass shooting epidemic in our country. Now, we had a discussion on this subject matter exactly 1 year ago, April 2022. And I'm going to read the very same article I read a year ago, the very same article. And you can see for yourself, it's still so very relevant, word for word, very relevant. The title of the article, Politicians, State and Federal, Save Your Canned Words of Comfort. It is long past the time to do something about gun violence. The article. Time and time again, our country experiences tragedies involving guns, and the politicians head toward the microphones to say the same things over and over again. Their statements have worn thin with many due to the frequency in which they're repeated. It is almost like their statements are canned because we know what is coming. How many times have you heard the following? Number one, our thoughts and prayers go out to the victims and their families. Number two, we thank God that there weren't more victims. Number three, let's pray for a speedy recovery for all the wounded. Number four, this is occurring too often. Our condolences go out to all the victims' families. And the next, God bless that community. And the shooter had mental illness. How many times have you heard our hearts go out to all that were touched by this tragedy? We're waiting to hear what the president has to say, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just how many times do we, the people, have to hear these remarks before we develop a very strong feeling of madness and anger directed toward our sorry-ass politicians? What is it going to take for all of us to realize that the people we elect to represent us are beholden to the NRA? Why can't we come together and say that our lives, our children's lives, our parents' lives, and our neighbors' lives matter more to us than all the money these crooked bastards can ever raise? Why can't we take just one election cycle and vote out of office any politician, state or federal, who doesn't work to curtail all this gun violence in America? Why don't we use one election cycle? Let's say the election cycle coming up in 2024 to demonstrate to the world that we mean business in terms of getting this horrible situation in our country under control. The number of mass murders taking place in our country is abnormal, period. But we have politicians and NRA lobbyists who are tied at the hip, wanting us to believe that it's no big deal. We must push back and push back hard in letting them know it is a big deal. It is a big deal when we have innocent babies and kids being slaughtered. It is a big deal when we have husbands and wives leaving behind orphaned kids through no fault of their own. It is a big deal when talented citizens such as doctors, lawyers, engineers, teachers, preachers, sanitation workers, custodians, and others are gunned down in the prime of their lives only because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. It is a big deal when anybody, regardless of their station in life, is murdered. People, we're not safe in this country. Let's face the facts. A review of the mass murders involving the death of 4 or more people, that's the definition of a mass murder, 4 or more victims killed or injured. A review of the mass murders shows that they have occurred since 2000 in all regions of the country. No area of our country has been spared. I had a conversation with a prominent state legislator about gun violence concerns. He shared with me the fact that that it is very unlikely to get any significant gun legislation passed in our state unless NRA lobbyist Marion Hammer helps write it. True, but so unfortunate. Later on in our conversation, the legislator said that he and his wife are thinking about taking a trip for their anniversary. And they're looking for a place where ISIS isn't operating. I said, ISIS my ass. You can't go anywhere in Florida or our country where it's safe. This is my take on just how we can effectively change the narrative in our state and country in the very near future. Please take to heart this strategy. Any political candidate accepting money from the NRA is unworthy of our vote, no matter who they are. This will impact our political landscape like nothing ever before. This will diminish the headlock that presently exists in the state legislatures and Congress. Please be reminded, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Thank you. Okay, once again, word for word, this is what was read on a podcast 1 year ago, April 2022. And we had a discussion. And we're going to have that same discussion again because the violence, the mass shootings have not let up. The situation is still very serious. What you have to say, Jay?
Well, first of all, touching on what you're saying about lobbyists, I think our government would run so much cleaner, especially with this gun, if we just get rid of lobbyists altogether, because money rules everything. And money is influence, money is persuasion. And the NRA has they have a lot of defense contracts, they have crazy money. And that's part of the problem. And they can't say no to this money. And they're in bed with the Republicans, along with other people that are in bed with the Republicans. And they don't care about the deaths. And a lot of these deaths happen in lower income neighborhoods anyway, where they're flooded with guns. You know, it can be stopped. It needs to be stricter laws, because these kids, I mean, who would go to who would shoot up a kid's school like that? I mean, that is crazy. There's no reason for it. It is crazy, but these lobbyists are behind it, and they could turn a blind eye to it and sleep at night because they're selling guns, selling weaponry.
Right on. Would you say, Russ?
I like to piggyback off of what Jamie says about the NRA, and let's face facts. Money, power, and control.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the three things lead to this race.
Money, power, and control.
And control.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get rid of it. I don't care how you look at it. For instance, Don Lemon has a book which is called This is the Fire. And what he mentioned in his book, he said this: nothing changes. Emotion dies out with time. You
Mhm.
understand that?
Yeah. Yesterday's news.
Every one of these statements that you have on your paper, these are emotional statements.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these things will die out with time. That's what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what Don Lemon says. When things happen in society like mass killing, we cry,
Mm-hmm.
we weep, we get angry, and we begin to blame people.
Mm.
And we promise things, but all that shit, finally, we become complacent.
Right.
You understand?
Fall in
that?
line.
Fall in line. So these mass killers, and I had a chance to go back and look at how the Republicans view these mass killings. These Republicans don't review mass killings as a crime.
Mhm.
They look at it as a mental health problem. Now, why would they do that? Because if you look at the Constitution, the Supreme Court says that you have a right to bear arms.
Mhm.
Now, and I don't know, do we misinterpret the Second Amendment to the Constitution? Do
Mhm.
we? Because the NRA said it is in the Constitution that we have a right to bear arms. Now, it doesn't say we have a right to eliminate people, but is it a misinterpretation, Henry? I don't know. And let me say this. If things is going to change with this, it has to become part, and I hate to say it has to become part of our environment. For instance, these killings that took place, not any of these Congress members has been involved in these shootings. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Not any of their kids. And I hate to say this. And I say that if this thing is going to change, something has to involve their members.
Mhm.
I have said that
And family.
forever.
Mhm.
I hate to say
I
that.
have
Yeah.
said that forever. Target, well, I don't want to say it
That's
like
right.
that.
That's
But
Right.
if, like you said, their family members were to be killed,
Yeah.
Right.
then they will take a different approach. And then I say that with reluctance as well. And I'm gonna
True.
tell you why.
True.
That stupid ass Congressman Scalise,
Mhm.
he was shot and almost killed
Yeah.
by an assault rifle
Yes.
when they were playing that baseball game.
Yeah.
Mhm. Right.
Right.
He was almost killed,
That's true.
hospitalized for an extended period of time. And he's right back on that horse,
Yeah. Bought and paid.
riding along with the other assholes, bought and
For. Bought
paid
and paid
for
for.
by the
Yeah.
lobbyists.
That's true.
But if you go back to what you were saying, when it was written in the beginning, what'd you say, Constitution,
Yeah.
the right, the Second Amendment, well, the right to bear arms was formulated because we didn't have a formulated military.
Exactly.
That's why. We acted as a militia to protect ourselves against
Exactly.
others. Now that we have that, that should have been revisited, because now you got all these crazy people out here just shooting up. That needs to be revisited. I mean, it really does. That was many years ago that you had the right to bear arms.
Right.
Now we have a military.
What you're saying right now, I heard a judge make that exact statement.
Mm-hmm.
He said the right to bear arms by militia
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
is not what's in play right now.
Right,
Totally.
right. We have formulated military. We have National Guard. So there's no need to really a need to bear arms. It's just America's greedy. That's the whole problem. We just like drugs and stuff. We know that they're making drugs that cure one thing and does 10 bad things, but it's the greed. It's the same way with these guns. The same way they don't care about the deaths. Because how Republicans look at it, oh, it was a mass shooting, somebody got killed. Oh, then what we need to do is make laws to bear more arms to protect yourself. They scare the public now. They put fear in they instill fear in the public to buy even more guns to protect yourself.
And let me piggyback on what Jamie's saying.
Go ahead, Russ.
This is the thing of the Republic. In this last shooting that took place, I was listening to Marjorie Taylor Greene, mouth talking garbage. That's what it is. Mouth talking garbage. That's what it is.
Mhm.
She is saying, you see what happened? If it had people, if good people had guns, they could stop this. See, that's crazy. That is really crazy.
Mhm.
So what I'm getting back to what Jamie said, Republican people are saying, it's not the guns that killing people. It's not the guns at all. Because if we had more guns given in hands of good people, we could stop this. That's bullshit.
That's bull.
That's
How many
bullshit.
more guns do we need? The United
Yeah.
States has more guns
The highest,
per capita,
the highest,
by far the
the
highest.
highest.
More guns per capita
Yes.
than any other country
Any
in the
Yeah.
world.
Yep.
And I'm thinking
That's
in
right.
anywhere from 2 to 3 times more
No, you're
than the
right.
next.
Right. And in the last 3 years, there's been over 600 mass shootings. And what you and I talked about earlier, Ray,
Right.
that's like 2 a day on average. That's like 2 a day. That's ridiculous. I got this from BBC News.
Sure.
I
Right.
kind of want to go into this. The incidents with 4 more killings where people killed or injured. 2014, 273. 2015, 336, 2016, 383, 2017, 348, 2018, 336, 2019, 417, 2020, 610, 2021, 690, 2022, 647. And as of 2023, it's around 131, 132 so far.
Let me piggyback on that. Go back to what James said. If you look at the year 2021, there was 45,000 Americans killed in this decade. That has been the highest decade of killing in this world.
Mhm.
Okay, that's 45,000 killed
45,000 Americans killed,
by gun violence.
gun violence. And that's all.
That's mass shootings,
Mass-
homicide, as well as
Exactly.
suicide.
Mhm.
Exactly.
45,000.
That's a lot of people. In
Mm.
10 years, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And what makes
10
it so
years
bad,
time.
what makes it so bad, it's still going.
It's still
It's
going on.
stuff.
Because they, you get like the Tennessee, I mean, you got a bunch of crazy, as far as Republicans, you got Kentucky, Ohio, Nebraska, this is according to the New York Times, Kentucky, Ohio, Nebraska, Texas, Virginia Republicans. They'll push these, to the limit of, they got these, they're getting rid of gun-free zones. They're trying to remove background checks. They're trying to roll back in like any red flags. If they're trying to roll that back, or any areas that remove firearms. And which the red flags identify people that have danger to themselves
Mhm.
or others. And they're trying to get rid of these laws just so they can sell more guns. This is crazy.
You know, Jay, speaking to what you just stated, in our country right now, today, we have more states that have rolled back the need for concealed weapons applications.
Right.
Now
Yep.
they're saying you have a constitutional right to carry, therefore you don't need to go through the process of being certified
Mhm.
to have a gun in your possession.
Right.
Now, a lot of the states haven't said that you can open carry these weapons, but they're saying you can at least have it on your possession.
Mhm.
Florida being the latest of that,
Yeah.
if I'm correct.
You are
Oh, you're
correct.
correct.
Okay,
As
if I'm
of
correct.
Thursday,
You're
As of
correct.
Thursday.
Just a bill on did Nazis' deaths to be signed.
Yeah.
Yeah, DeSantis, did not see, yeah, to be, and you can, this, you won't need a permit.
Nah.
You don't even need a carry permit.
You know,
once he signs it.
in terms of all of the stupidity the Republicans advocate and try and get out into the public sphere about their concern
Mhm.
about the welfare of kids.
Mhm.
We love our kids. We want to protect our
Yeah.
kids. We want to make sure that they're safe and sound.
Right.
And there was a legislator on the floor of Congress protesting the use of almond milk, saying that almond milk was bad for the health of the kids because almond milk did not provide the nutrients of whole milk.
Oh,
And the kids need whole milk to nourish their organs, their bodies. Now, he's professing a concern about the organs, the bodies of these kids, but he doesn't care about what a bullet does to those organs.
exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
I want to kick him in his ass. I do. I do.
And it's misdirection to get your attention off stuff like that. It's
Oh,
they come up
man.
like just it's all misdirections. I mean, these kids, they need to show the news need to show these videos over and over again. Kids running, people running, they need to plaster the TV
That
with
is
it
right.
every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Even if the subject is on whether the sun came up, show those kids running
Kids
across.
running for their lives, and they need to show this.
Yeah.
It needs to hit
Oh,
home
man.
because Americans are greedy, and this is all about money.
Yes,
This is all about money.
You know, one of you stated that what needs to happen is for some of the family members of some of these legislators to actually experience what others are
That's what I've been
experiencing.
Yeah.
And that's a true fact
Right.
because nothing hits home like when it's in your family,
Mhm, mhm.
like when it's in your family.
Right.
That's what I said.
So I'm not going to
Right.
say I
Right.
want
No.
their kids to be injured, killed, or whatever. I'm not saying that.
No.
But I'm saying if it's going to save the country,
Mhm.
then maybe we need to have some sacrifices from that quarter of our community, the politicians
Yeah.
that are ignoring the fact that so many kids, adults, individuals, what have you, from all walks of life are being slaughtered in this country. 3 kids,
Mhm.
9 years old in Memphis, Tennessee.
Mhm.
No, that was Nashville, Tennessee. 3 kids and 3 adults.
And right, and not just yeah, it's terrible. The school shooting is heart wrenching. It's terrible. But look what's been happening in South Central in the hood for all these years. As long as black people kill each other, it didn't even make the news. Now there's school shootings and suicides and all that. What about what's been going on for 20, 30 years? I mean, innocent kids on the way to school getting shot by gang violence and this and that.
Yeah.
It's still guns.
Guns.
And it's happening to low income black and brown people. And it didn't make the news.
Well, let's go
Not
back.
national news.
Let's go back to what we said earlier, actually, before we started the podcast. 4,100 plus mass shootings
Mhm.
in our country from 2014 to now, 4,170.
Mhm.
But that ranks low in terms of the number of suicides
Right.
and homicides
Mhm.
that are not necessarily mass shootings.
Correct.
So when you add up all of the type of violence and killings resulting from guns, whether it's suicide, homicide, mass shootings, the numbers are outrageous.
Mhm.
And the gun lobby doesn't give a damn.
They don't.
The
It's
gun
about the
lobby
money.
doesn't give a
Because back what you were saying is control.
Control.
If you pay the money, you have control, and they're gonna dance. They're gonna dance for you, and they're greedy. They don't care. These wealthy Republicans, they go home and sleep. Yeah, they'll watch it on TV and be sad for a second. As soon as the TV off, they're like, let's go play golf. They don't care.
Well, let me say this, when I was in Mariana last weekend to this funeral, I had the biggest heart on that sort of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing was, you can justify a lie if you got money.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can justify any negative event if you got the money and
Mhm.
power. Justification is based on power and money.
Right.
You understand?
Money makes the
So
world.
here's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back in 1999,
Mm-hmm.
the Columbine,
Mm.
15 kids were killed in Columbine. 15. And we said the same thing that you saying here, right?
Same thing.
Same thing. Now that's 99. This is what, 2023?
Mm-hmm.
We saying the same thing. Why? Because as James said, this thing is controlled by money and power. you know.
You know what? If ISIS parked their little behinds in one of our cities right now, they will use everything they got to eradicate them. Why can't they put the money and energy into this? They can do it, but it's a money factor. It's been interviews, governors and all this, and oh, we can't do anything about it. There's nothing we can do. That's a lie. You don't want to do anything about it because it keeps your pockets fat.
It was Tim Burchett, GOP congressman out of Tennessee, who said he doesn't think government has a role to play in stopping mass shooting. He doesn't think government has a role.
They don't want
As a matter of fact, quoted as here, criminals are going to be criminals.
Yes.
He said, I say sorry ass lawmakers are going to be sorry ass lawmakers, no matter what. That's my quote.
Right.
So we have to do something in terms of getting them out of office. That's the bottom line.
Stiffer laws. I mean, it needs to be stiff
But the
laws.
stiffer laws come after we get these people out of office.
Yeah, that's true.
But Ray, you said something in your report a few minutes ago about this guy. And listen to what he said. Criminals are going to be criminals.
Yes.
That is what the Republicans fight. They don't fight gun laws. They're saying they fight the criminals. If a criminal had a gun, they'll fight that. But mass shooting, they don't fight that.
What you say, Don?
They don't fight that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, gentlemen, as you know, we just had a very lively discussion on a very serious topic in our country, mass shootings. The result of all of these mass shootings are neighborhoods, communities devastated. Devastation all over the country. And the vast majority of these mass shootings are white people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whose families probably voted for these damn mass shooters.
Yes.
Heroes such as, well, the heroes of the mass shooters. So why won't they get out there and start protesting?
Right.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So what I'm going to have to say is we're at the end, guys, and it's almost like I hate to end this discussion because it's something that needs to be said over and over and over, because if it's not said over and over and over, it's going to be people like Tim Burchett from Tennessee who control the narrative. If they're only the ones saying what needs to be said on their end, they're controlling the narrative.
Right.
So I say to Tim Burchett, take a cucumber and stick it up your ass. Oh, Lord.
I like that.
I detest these people
I like
that are ignoring what happened. When you look at what happened up in Connecticut at Sandy Hook, 20 kids murdered, slaughtered to the point that the parents couldn't even recognize their kids' bodies, couldn't recognize their faces because their faces were blown off. One of the worst scenes they have ever encountered. And in other areas, the same thing, because these weapons just destroy the body. So having said that, we can't let them control the narrative. We have to speak out and speak out loudly and strongly about this matter. I thank you too, as always. And I ask our audience to continue looking at and listening to the Ray Tampa podcast. Check our YouTube channel out, the Ray Tampa podcast on YouTube. Go to the Weekly Challenger. Check out some of the articles we have in the Weekly Challenger. And I want to say thank you to the audience at 5:30 every Tuesday. Tune in right here, 99.1 FM, The Bird, and listen to the Ray Tampa podcast. And sponsorships are welcome, please understand that. So at this point, we sign off by saying good night.
Yes. I meant this.